Welcome to the April 28th work session of the Cary Town Council. This time I'll turn it over to our interim town manager.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. In tonight's agenda, we're going to briefly review upcoming meeting schedules, and then we're going to roll into Act 37 and 38 updates that will be presented by Cassie Schumacher-Georgopoulos as well as Paul Kuhn. And really what that's code for is the park system plan and bike plan updates that will ultimately go into our LDO and Imagine Cary. And so I would encourage you all, there's a lot of information in there, is to ask them plenty of questions tonight, because you will also be seeing this on your agenda for Thursday night, which will be the initial public hearing or the public hearing for those changes. The parks plan was, I believe, they'll tell you, the park system plan was updated in 2024 and adopted. This kind of then takes it into adopting it into Imagine Cary as well as the LDO. And then for the bike plan, lots of updates and changes on that, and you'll hear how many changes have probably had through the years. So just, again, that is the main two topics on the agenda tonight. So I just, again, encourage asking questions. And then I hope we get to this, because we didn't last time, but give you some updates on our sales tax and property tax updates in the town manager's update. And there is a closed session following.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just the overview of the calendar. So tonight, followed by this Thursday, and then we go into the May quarterly work session, regular meetings, May 28th, and then we'll head into June.
All right.
Did we change the dates?
Not yet. We discussed it at the last work session, and staff is still working on options.
But none of those dates.
Yeah, none of these
were
dates
to be
have
changed.
Okay.
That was for the November quarterly and the August quarterly.
Yes.
Were the two that they were.
Yes.
For the staff that was working on it, I checked, and the August one I wasn't sure about. I'm fine with the new date.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember
great.
what it was, but
What is the new?
Brittany had a
I didn't-
problem
I
with
didn't
it,
see that.
You had a problem with the,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was for the original date.
Yes.
Not the new proposed date.
Correct.
It's still a distance away, and
We're still working through it.
Exactly.
What
Yeah.
is the new date, sorry?
We have nothing proposed now.
But which date were, like,
It didn't work for.
It didn't work out. So
Oh,
it's
I
best
see.
just to start fresh
Yes.
at a different time, and we weren't going to do that tonight, if that's okay.
And Lori's not here, so
Yeah,
we
true,
wouldn't do it
true.
without her.
All right.
All right. Good evening, Council and Mayor. I am Paul Kuhn. I have worked for Cary for 20-some years, doing park planning, greenway planning, all those fun things that get to do here in Cary. And so tonight, wanted to give an overview of the Act 37 and 38 because of it including both the PRCR system plan and the bike plan. I'm going to start with kind of an overview, and then we're going to turn it over to Cassie to talk a little bit more about the bike plan and that section of it. So the key takeaways is we've really had a tradition of planning in Cary, and we won't continue that with the PRCR system plan and the bike plan. And amending the Engage and Move chapter is really what we're after with this next step in the process. And that's so that we can put it into the development ordinance and be able to implement these plans. So we have the pretty plans with all the pictures and everything. Well, now we'll be able to have the regulatory authority. So that's the big takeaway. And so our agenda tonight is, like I said, Cassie and I will talk. We think we'll take about 15 minutes here to give an overview of it, but we really want to open it up to discussion to see, do you have questions on the system plan? Do you have questions on the bike plan or the Engage and Move chapter, and then ultimately the land development ordinance? And we will also be at the public hearing this Thursday, giving more information at that point. All right. So why do we plan the 2040 Imagine Cary plan? You all are familiar with, and that's what we're working for, is trying to incorporate all this. We want to articulate what the community is after, again, providing the regulatory authority that we're needing to work with developers, and then planning for those future services and needs that are out here. And many times when we go after a grant, it requires that we have these plans in place place and that council has adopted, approved them in order for us to go after those matching funds and grants. So another very important reason why we have these plans. So within the Imagine Cary plan, we have the two chapters that we're talking about tonight. Chapter 5 is the Engage, which will have the PRCR system plan updated underneath it. And then the Move chapter, which is Chapter 7, which includes the Cary bike plan. When we were working on the bike plan and the system plan, we went through a robust community engagement process. So we just highlighting some of the major elements that we did over the last few years on these plans. It started with community surveys that we reached out, had people take we had focus groups, we did pop-up sessions at spring days, lazy days. We worked with the advisory boards and the committees under them to weigh in on all these plans. So there was a lot of opportunities. We even had public meetings, including a joint public meeting with the bike plan last March, so that people could see the overlap with the greenway system and the bike plan. So we were trying to really coordinate a lot of those elements. And then that leads to our continuing on with more public feedback. A public hearing this Thursday where, again, get more weigh-in on that process. And then that hopefully will lead us to the Planning and Zoning Board, which will need to review it, and then ultimately coming back to Council for the final adoption. So we still have several more steps here to go through in order to make this all happen. We wanted to highlight the preamble. So both in the bike plan and the PRCR system plan, we have this language right at the very beginning of it. And a couple things I want to highlight is these are both aspirational roadmaps. So they're intended to kind of, what's that long-term vision? But it's also based on what is the budget that we have available at that time. So we're not approving any budget items with these plans. That all is through a separate process that you all are currently working through or will be in the next month or so. But we need these plans in order to be able to kind of, what are the requests that we want to make as staff?
And let me chime in there as well, because that's an important part. Preambles are new to plans. And I may ask Stacy to jump in as well, but you get to build your plan probably one of two ways, either by the development community that ultimately builds and has to do something that was on the plan, or through capital projects. So in years past, folks would see a plan and they'd get very excited about when is that project going to happen. That project is only going to happen as a result of budgeting and approvals of budgets. So, and Stacy, just to make sure I said that right, Stacy's been our capital planning guru for some time. So anything else to add?
No, I mean, that's exactly it. The plan is exactly what it is. It's a vision. And then every year throughout your budget process and the input that you all receive from the public and other venues, you then take this vision combined with that input and then enter into these budget discussions that lead to more planning and ultimately funding for some things, but not all. So.
All righty. So diving now into the PRCR system plan, we just want to do a quick recap. I think I have 3 slides here based on what was approved in 2024. Since that time, we have updated just a little coordination with the bike plan. There was some greenway coordination, some minor items like that. But this is actually our 5th master plan, or we changed our name to system plan to kind of incorporate everything. The first one was in 1978. So since 1978, we've updated this several times along that process. So it's exciting that we're on number 5 and able to kind of continue that planning. And the system plan really incorporates everything that the PRCR department does. The programming, the facilities, trying to understand what those needs and expectation. So just using some examples from this past month, we had the playground celebration at Davis Drive. That's an example of, we had a 25-year-old playground that needed to be replaced. It had aged out, but we were able to actually upgrade it and make some improvements that would serve additional members of the community. So those are things that happen. We had the ACC tennis tournament, example of our sports venues, hosting different venues out there. And of course, Spring Days this past weekend of the arts and culture that are happening, and even them inviting people to use the Greenway. Ride your bike to Spring Days. Use that as a connectivity. Another overlap with the bike plan. How can our greenways connect with destinations along those lines? So all part of it. The system plan really sets the vision, as we said here. It's our guidance document, but it does not include funding commitments at this point. So we're just trying to, how do we really know where we want to go in the future? And that was done by really doing an assessment, all the public feedback we gathered through the surveys, staff were able to weigh in and really analyze what that is to come up with the recommendations. And out of the recommendations, these are the 6 guiding key principles that we came up with that are in the plan. And really, I'll just go through these really quickly just to highlight that Cary Invests and Grows is talking about new stuff. What should we add? What should we be doing along that line? Where the next one, Cary Reinvest and Evolves, is about our existing facilities. How do we take care of, maintain what we have already? And then also, when you think about programming events, how do they evolve as demographics and things are changing? How do we change our programming to match our current community? Cary Connects is all about the Greenway system and that network. The Cary Steward is the environmental experience, not only how we take care of our parks and everything, but what kind of education programs are we offering to the community. And then you get to Cary Creates, which is about the arts and cultural programs that is being offered. And finally, Cary Innovates is about our venues. The entertainment and sports venues that we have out there, that we have these world-class facilities in Cary that we're very fortunate about. And that really takes us now to the Cary Bike Plan, where Cassie is going to jump in.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Before I begin, I want to introduce 2 folks who are sitting in the back who are really the reason why we have a completed plan in front of you tonight. And that's Todd Milam, who is a planner within our transportation department, and then Jared Draper, who's with Tool Design, who was our lead consultant on the project. So just want to acknowledge them for in all their hard work. I get the benefit of standing up here in front of you to present it to you, but it's really, they're the guys who helped bring the plan together.
Well, and you should say something about yourself, because Cassie was leading these planning efforts before she became the transportation director, by the way.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Now she gets to enact the plan as the
Yeah.
transportation
Yeah,
director.
I'm a little jealous that Paul got to do the overview of Imagine Cary and all that other stuff beforehand, because that was what I was doing before I'm in this role. But
And
also-
still doing it.
but also got to shepherd along the Cary Bike Plan in this role. So the Cary Bike Plan, this is not a new type of plan for Cary. Cary has always had a bike plan. We are typically updating the bike plan when we update the transportation plan. So the last time this was updated was in 2017 and incorporated into the Imagine Cary plan and into the MOVE chapter. Why this update is needed now is really based on citizen feedback and a desire for separated bike facilities, and that has also changed. That has also been updated based on the national best practices and design guidance. So moving from wider outside lanes or just a designated bike lane to more separated facilities for a more comfortable ride on a busy road network. Also looking at amending our development regulations and working with our development community, because it's not necessarily about widening the amount of right-of-way they have to give us, but it's about working with them on using that right-of-way differently. And I'll explain what I mean by that later on. We have an example of what that looks like today, or will look like if the plans are adopted. We have continued to receive requests for increased, safer, connected bike and pedestrian infrastructure throughout the community. I'm sure you all get these emails every day. I see them. You send them to me, so thank you. And so this is a way for us to continue to work on that, to understand how that's showing up in the community and through community requests, and seeing how we can look to the possibility of implementing that in the future. It aligns with our Vision Zero resolution that Council adopted last April, and also builds on our existing Greenway network. Staff has already been working with the development community on implementation of this plan, so this is a continuation of how do we update our development guidance in order to meet the needs of the citizens, as well as not overburden developers with requests for changing facilities within the roadway network. We'll continue to integrate the plan into our development regulations. And also, we include this in our capital projects. So it's not necessarily that it's a new type of capital program. We're implementing this year with our street improvement program. So in areas where we have bike lanes, we'll be updating those bike lane stripings, likely making that bike lane wider where we have the right-of-way. Also improving pedestrian crossings at intersections, which was another item that was identified by the community, just through better connectivity to the system. Also focusing on education, events, and awareness. So it's not all about capital projects. It's also about how do we talk about bike culture in the community and educating bike culture. I'm not going to deep dive into e-bikes tonight, but e-bike culture and e-bike safety is actually part of the plan. It's an action item of the plan. So you guys are already moving forward with implementation of this plan as we continue those conversations on e-bike and e-bike safety.
Hey, Cassie, could you add, since you've got NCDOT on this slide, and granted they're a partner, some of this planning document overlaps on their streets, and we're seeing a lot of requests with regards to what DOT will or won't allow. Could you speak to how this plan can be implemented on a DOT street or not? So part of this is you're continuing to work with NCDOT. We do acknowledge that we don't own all the roadway networks, and a lot of that network where you're seeing the higher, like we call them higher stress networks, where you're seeing faster speeds and more volume on those streets, we'll really be working with NCDOT. We do have proposed in our capital budget this year a road diet for Harrison Avenue, and that's actually working with NCDOT to go from Maynard all the way to Chatham Street with a road diet, and they're supportive of that, and also are willing to pay for the portion on the part of Harrison that they own. So they also see a need for mobility, giving citizens mobility choices, as well as adapting their roadway network for these. But it's not probably every case where we can do this, and some networks are going to be harder to change than others, just based on the way that the street was designed for higher rates of speed and higher volumes, and also understanding where citizens will actually use that integrated network and where they won't. So what we've learned through this process, so again, Paul kind of gave an overview of what our engagement process was. What we learned from the community is that our greenways are great, but they don't fully meet their daily travel needs. So not necessarily connecting to their place of work or to the store, similar to what we saw as greenway feedback in the parks plan. The gaps in the high-stress road networks limits citizens' desires to walk and bike. And so looking at how do you provide more comfortable situations for citizens on those networks. Most people are riding for recreation today and not transportation, but that trend is changing, and that's part of the reason why we're updating the plan. And then a stronger desire for separated and safer facilities. What the plan provides is that it does move away from the recreation focus. The parks plan is really focused on the recreation component of this, and this looks at everyday transportation options. It emphasizes connected networks to daily destinations. Sorry, not just that recreational network. So getting to where you want to go. My husband and I used to race our cruiser bikes to Dairy Queen because that's where we wanted to go. So if we can look at similar options here. And we still do that sometimes. We haven't outgrown that. Also prioritizing low stress and more comfortable facilities for all ages and abilities. So it's not about me getting dressed up in my bike gear and going out and riding 40 miles on our road network. It's about your 8-year-old, it's about your 80-year-old getting on your bike and getting to places that you want to go, and choosing not to get into the car, but instead having an opportunity to choose a different mode of travel. It also focuses on implementation
through programs and partnerships. So not just Cary funding more and more capital projects. So really looking at changing culture, increasing awareness, and also working with our partner agencies to help to assist us with that. And again, it does not commit to capital funding or projects. So that will be done on an annual basis. So there's no dollar amount listed at the end of this plan. Previous plans have had that. The previous parks plan had a capital layout of different projects and what their costs would be. These plans do not include that because it's going to be continued conversations with council as we adopt updated capital budgets every year. And so the vision for the plan is and it's a continuation of the previous vision, to create a network of safe, comfortable, and convenient bikeways that allow residents, employees, and visitors of all ages and abilities to take daily trips. So again, focusing on that everyday user, not just on the expert, competent bike rider. And the plan is based on a network approach, so you'll see a comprehensive bikeway network that is to be implemented over time. So we don't expect you to do this next year. If you leave with anything today, we're not committing to implement this next year. It is something that we look at for implementation over time through development, through private development, as well as through our own improvements and maintenance of the system. It's focused on those separated bikeways, so again, vertically separated from traffic on those high stress networks. The neighborhood bikeways are really the connectors to get from rear residential neighborhood to those separated bike facilities into the larger connected system. Often, sometimes could even be done through traffic calming systems, so really where those low rate of speed and low stress opportunities are. With the overall focus to connect to what we heard was to destinations, to our greenway system, as well as to transit. And so what this shows up as in the plan today and what we're evolving from is you can see the existing cross-section at the top is adopted into Imagine Cary, and it's very specific on the roadway network. I'm sorry, I'm gonna grab some water. Oh, here, yes. It's very specific on the dimensions of how the roadway and how that right-of-way is going to be used. So you're seeing, it's very tiny, but so today it prescribes a 12-foot travel lane and a 14-foot travel lane on operating in both directions. What we're looking at today is within that same right-of-way network, how can you narrow that lane width and bring more of that space over to the bike and pedestrian network? So really, we only need an 11-foot travel lane. Our engineers are working with the development community today to reduce the width of the vehicular travel lane and use that space instead to provide a more comfortable bike and pedestrian network without requiring more land dedication or getting into more of their developable area, but really focus on what's required today.
Does reducing the width of a travel lane reduce speed typically? Is that a traffic calming measure?
Yes.
In
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah.
In theory?
Yeah. So yeah, an additional benefit, but yeah, it depends on how fast you want to go in that lane.
Studies
but, yeah.
have shown that that's the result. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you stop on that a second too? I
Yeah.
thought Heather might chime in because this is just something to think about. And maybe had a little discussion on it today. Because as Cassie's mentioned, you do this over time. So anywhere that this proposed lane change is mentioned, whether we do a project or it's implemented over time as development occurs, you're going to get these spots of haves and have-nots or different cross sections of things. So you just should think about, and I know you all get a lot because I see them from y'all, but citizens will ask, when are you going to widen this gap, or when is this gap going to match what's next to it? So doing this, there's nothing wrong with this approach, but you're going to introduce yet another standard. So as the right-of-way changes in front of development, and I know it's Cassie's team too, but Heather's team as a result of rezonings or public hearings and other things, you may start seeing comments regarding what these changes are and then how they transition to what the old thing is. So I don't know if there's anything to add on that, Heather.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you summed it up other than just to, highlight that, yes, it would be another standard. And so even if we would, consider it the preferred standard, there would be those inconsistencies as new development comes online. So we would have to work with developers to marry those standards together and feather them together as best as possible.
And then may put pressure on a capital system to do our own improvements to connect the dots of these spaces where you have different standards. And we have plenty of different standards through the year, but I think it just bears highlighting for those that are watching or listening that you won't get a separated, bikeway or sidewalk for complete stretches unless we do a capital project, and you'll get it in effect piecemeal to some degree as development comes in and meets these standards along the way. So just something to think about.
And our team, through the development review process and working with private development, has looked at how do these relate to the context that they're associated or they're sitting in. And so another example of how this has been applied would be the Weston PDD, which was recently approved, and working with the consultant or with the developer to dedicate not a separated bike facility, but a wider street side trail that would connect to the larger system. So instead of doing a sidewalk and then requiring them in today's standards to add that wider outside lane, using that extra width to add it to a street side trail to have a larger bike and ped accommodation in that area versus even the cost of changing the curb line, dedicating more land to the street that then we would have to go back and retrofit if we wanted to upgrade that area.
One more question. How wide is our typical right-of-way today?
12, isn't it?
Is it 12 feet?
The whole right-of-way or lane, sorry.
Not the lane, the right-of-way.
I mean, that's probably pretty accurate. The roadway section being 90 feet, but you have different size. That's a 30-foot median, so it could shrink based on the median.
And so we have, I think there's 8 different cross-sections in the Imagine Cary Community Plan that are our standards for, it depends on the road. So we have some that go down to 70 feet of right-of-way and some that go all the way up, I think, to 125 feet of right-of-way or more.
Okay.
So this you'll see on large stretches of NCDOT roads. We do require it's 4 lanes and then having that median divided. You'll see a lot more on the street networks that have higher volumes and higher rates of speed.
Is it safe for me to assume that we're more likely to have 115 feet of roadway right-of-way in West Cary or newer development areas than we are in the remainder of Cary?
I would say it, maybe. And I'd say it differently, where you have median divided roads like Cary Parkway,
That's where
Morrisville Parkways, and anything that has a wide median. So it's possible because the standard went to this over time. But Cary Parkway is probably the poster child of the
For that.
loop road that has that type of right-of-way.
Okay, thank you.
And so then just to highlight some examples that we have in the community already of these facilities. So the Fenton development included, kind of the premier, when you think about these separated facilities and images that you see from other communities, Fenton really has the premier facility out here. So this has the separated bike lane with landscaping in that separation, and then it also has a separated pedestrian facility along with that. Other ways that we've applied this, though, since Fenton was done in 2020, and opened in 2020. So the Norwell Road Diet was done in 2022, and this we didn't move curbs. We actually took extra wide lanes and reduced them to add in buffered bike lanes or separated bike lanes on Norwell Road. So this is right outside of North Cary Park. This allowed for connectivity to the Greenway as well as to the neighborhoods. And again, using just the extra road space that we have today, we were able to incorporate these facilities. And the cost for this was around $200,000. And then the Walnut Street Road Diet, which was our most recent one, completed in 2024. The cost of this for the length was $500,000. So this, instead of just taking extra outside lanes, we actually took a whole lane and converted that into buffered bike lanes along Walnut Street, which I think staff has studied this post-opening and has been a really successful integration of and use of that road system, reducing speeds and also offering a safer, more comfortable facility for residents to really connect into downtown Cary as well as other connections to retail and commercial areas. All right. Any questions before I dive into what we're going to wrap up with? Any questions on the bike plan? Any other questions on the bike plan? Okay. All right. So the second act of this grand act is Act 38, which is land development ordinance amendments. So this is integrating the Cary bike plan and the PRCR system plan into our development regulations. There are three focus areas of this update, focusing on updating the names and references in the land development ordinance. Also, how are we going to updating plan guidance, so updates to the easement widths, as well as allowing greenways and bikeways and buffers similar to how we allow sidewalks. So again, not taking more space away or more developable area away from developers, but really working within the confines of the right-of-way and in those designated spaces. We're also updating our bike parking schedule and our standards. We're also updating the bike facility design standards as some of what I've shown you tonight and removing outdated requirements. And then finally, we're updating some of the processes, so clarifications to parkland and greenway dedication, and then updating definitions. So we're adding bikeways and things that weren't included in the bike plan, as well as updating the definition for greenways and street side trails in the LDO, in the land development ordinance.
And so bike parking schedule, meaning bike racks?
Yes, bike racks.
Things of that nature, which has been a concern of council over the years. It is new and increased standards at the same time.
And when you think of bike racks, in my mind, I was thinking of the ladder rack, like the schoolyard rack, where you can put multiple bikes, but really it's just that U is one bike rack, so that you can get 1 to 2 bikes on. So as you're looking through the amendments, it's just one U versus the full ladder rack, because I had a moment of like, hold on, how many bike racks are we planning to park here? So if you're like me and thinking old schoolyard bike racks, it's not that. It's things you see on Town Hall campus and around the community. All right, so again, our next steps, we'll see you at the public hearing on Thursday. We'll dive more into the amendments that are happening with the Engage and Move chapters, as well as the land development ordinance. So we'll provide more detail then. And then if you choose to, you can recommend it to the Planning and Zoning Board, which we hope to take it to the summer if you are willing to do that, and then bring it back to you if they approve it or if they recommend it back to you. Hopefully having this completed this summer. We have been working on them since 2023 and are excited to get it to this point to bring it before you.
And you've had some input with developers
Yes.
as well, just to highlight that.
Yep. Working with the development community, I think on a weekly basis now when they come to DRC meetings, and we haven't had pushback from them. It's really, Todd telling them the story of why we're doing it, and also how we're working with them within the current requirements of our LDO and of the Cary Community Plan to achieve that vision, and then achieve more comfortable and options for mode of choice for our citizens and our residents. And last slide is the discussion slide.
I interrupted with all my questions.
You guys did a great job explaining it. I don't have a lot to say. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be here all meeting, so come up.
Cassie's getting out of here. And you'll see her on Thursday night with the abridged version of this presentation, we hope. All right, I'm going to do a few updates. Well, actually, I'm going to call on Stacy to do a few updates, which are, I'm stealing her slides. We didn't get to these last time. Councilmember Bush had some questions on this regarding property taxes and something you're hearing about, maybe a loophole and some legislative items to close that, where we're seeing some threats to our tax value. So Stacy, I'll just give it to her and won't bury the lead and let her go into that.
There you go. All right, well, we'll do just a few slides here. Let me see if I can get this to go. There we go. We'll start with the monthly sales tax revenue slide that I think you're used to seeing. This is really just looking for trends on this slide. That's what I appreciate about this viewpoint. We do have 3 lines of data. I want to very quickly acclimate you to those. Green was activity from fiscal year 24, blue fiscal year 25, and then when you get to the orange, that's fiscal year 26, our current year. In this case, because it's sales tax, you can see that we have made it to January sales. So there is a lag between when we all shop, when the state collects it, and then when we receive our distributions. So this information is showing us through January sales. And you do see, you hit your peak up here in December, everybody's shopping in the holidays, and it does drop down. That's not uncommon at all. So right now, the good news here really is seen on this slide. And so the orange bar to the left notes where we were at this point last year through January sales of last year. Bar on the right through January sales of this year. So we're tracking a little ahead of schedule. Exactly 8% over last year, to be precise. And overall, about 5.6% more than last year. So again, that January distribution or sales was the lowest point, but that is not uncommon. That happens every year. And really, we are feeling pretty good. I don't want to jinx anything, find some wood. We're feeling pretty good about sales tax revenue this year. We budgeted $59 million for fiscal year 26. We've already gotten to 36.2 almost. So this one is tracking right along in a good manner. So that is sales tax. If you have any questions on that, we'll jump to property tax, where there's a little bit more to talk about.
Can you tell me what percentage year-over-year increase that is, just so the way we look at it?
Yes, I mean, like I was saying earlier, if you're comparing where we are this year to last year, we're at about 5.6 over, and right now about 5.5 in general year over year.
So that would be the equivalent of when we did our budgeting model, our exercise.
Yeah.
If we put in a 5.5%
Increase,
in
exactly.
sales tax.
That's exactly right. So things are trending up, and if you think about it, good or bad, inflation is high right now.
Sure.
So whether we're shopping less, we're potentially still spending more. So that does a little bit to bolster this. So there's a lot going on there.
That was literally my next question.
Right.
And when prices go up, sales tax revenue go up when things get more
tends
expensive.
to not dip because you've got that inflation factor bolstering things a bit. Thinking about what we are talking about for potential revenue next year as we enter the budget, we like to look at the League of Municipalities. I've mentioned that before, and what they recommend. They're suggesting that in the next year, the state as a whole, due to population growth and other factors, may see about a 3% increase in sales tax revenue. Cary's always been, knock on wood again, a little bit higher than that. So this 5.5% trend that we're seeing is not uncommon and is probably not too in jeopardy of change. How's that?
Of course, it does highlight, as you mentioned that with the league, it's become a little more unpredictable.
It has.
Because we were having this conversation probably a year ago about they were predicting higher, and we went lower, and now it's trending higher.
Sales tax is definitely art, not science, I think is really how I think about it. But we are seeing, inflation does have an impact, good or bad.
But let's just celebrate the moment.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I just like to be happy with that for a little bit. Makes me feel good. Okay, so we're going to talk about property tax collections now. Same thing with the colors. Green is 24, blue 25, orange is this year in 26. You can see we've made it to collections through March in this case. This is all property tax, all counties, all of Cary. And that is also trending generally in a similar fashion. What is a little more unique about this point of the year, from April to June, is the fact that really the property tax we're collecting now is vehicle property tax, because everyone's paid, for the most part, their real property tax on their land and buildings. That typically happens at this peak back here, as those bills are generally due in January. You see that happening somewhere between November and January. What I want to talk about, though, is what we think could happen in the next few months, potentially. If we look at year-to-date where we are, 25 to 26, we're looking good. We've collected 163.9 last year, 174 this year. Where the questions are starting to come into place are toward the end of this year, in these next few months and going into next year. We have been getting some guidance from Wake County, which is where most of Cary is located, that they're seeing higher rates of upheld property value appeals, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more on the next two slides. And they are seeing indications of some non-payment or a little uptick in non-payment of vehicle taxes. And on the slide previously, what I just indicated was, while this has been pretty typical, these next few months are where we really see the revenue coming from those remaining vehicle payments, right? So they have asked us to, I think the words that our Wake County tax administrator used was to sharpen our pencils. And just pay attention to that. So we are being mindful of that. We're closely watching it, and we will continue to bring you updates this fiscal year, and we will definitely talk more about it as we're planning for 27. But I want to give you a little bit of context on not just the vehicle side of the fence, but when we talk more about the real property, the land and buildings. There's been some talk that you all may have heard about appeals on property values, and then also a charitable tax exemption. I'd like to spend just a couple of minutes on those, if that's okay with you all. Again, we are closely following Wake County. We're watching Chatham and Durham as well, but most of Cary is in Wake. And so the latest update that we have received on appeals at the Wake County side of the fence, the filing deadline was April 22nd, so just, I believe that was last week. And the information that we've received from them is that there are still 4 residential properties under review in that appeal process. In total, their assessed value is $1.8 million. So while if those values are reduced in some way, we would see a loss of property tax revenue, it would probably be fairly minimal. Where it's a little more impactful is when you're looking at the 56 commercial properties that are in process. Those have a total current assessed value of $946 million. There is potential that if those value reductions are upheld, we could see property tax revenue loss more like in the hundreds of thousands, like 100 to 300,000. So that one is the one that we're really keeping our eye on right now. Questions about appeals?
So the appeals are property taxes that have not been paid because they're under appeal?
Because the values are being the assessed values are being reevaluated, yes. They filed that appeal, and there is a board, it has an acronym I can't remember, but that board reviews those and then makes the determination and provides that information to the county tax administration group.
Yeah, that was partly my question too. Forgive my complete ignorance about this process. This is brand new to me, the appeals process. So it's a county board?
Yes.
And that board is appointed?
I'm honestly, I don't, I can look into that for you. I actually don't have the specifics.
Getting into the minutia, I'm just curious.
No, it's important.
And how do those appeals work in terms of if they're upheld? It reverts back to a previous valuation, it's given a brand new?
It's assigned a new value that comes through that process. And if that person has already paid their property taxes, we then need to refund them to the new value, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
So we may think we have more money than we actually do.
Potentially, and this will happen. When the county provided this information to us, they kind of made some guesstimates as to if this much is upheld, maybe this much would affect you in fiscal year 26. Their process, I think, is fairly lengthy when you've got 56 commercial properties just in Cary to review. So then they kind of said, and if this many actually are processed by fiscal year 27, then maybe you'd have an impact like this. So I wouldn't say that it's an immediate impact. It's something, though, that we just need to be mindful of and have in the back of our mind when we're talking about
And
property
keep
tax
watching
revenue.
the trends. If this is going to increase, flatten off, stay the same, whatever it might be.
Is this a significant number of commercial properties asking for a revision of their valuation?
The county, for countywide, they said yes.
Yes, it is higher than they have seen in quite some time, countywide.
So why are we seeing that this year? Why did it not happen after reval?
I think they've been working through this process for some time.
Okay.
But I don't have specifics as to if there was a particular change in this last 12-month period.
And we think it's trending upward.
Yes, that is the guidance they're giving us, is just be thoughtful.
I'm curious about 56 commercial properties, are they like office buildings or like shopping plazas or apartments?
I don't have that information. I'm sure if I reach out to Wake County, we could get more detail on that. I just have the classification by residential versus commercial right now.
But just the fact that it's almost an assessed value of $1 billion countywide is an impact, especially to the county.
Yeah. Any other appeals
So
questions?
those numbers are for the county.
Wake
That
County.
it's Cary properties.
Cary property
within
in
Wake
Wake
County. Yes.
My question is not related to appeal per se, but that would most likely impact the property tax, so might as well I'll ask this question now. I know that there are some vouchers for senior citizens. Does that impact the property tax as well that we get?
They do. There are various exemptions. There is a senior exemption. It has a pretty defined income level associated with that, which makes it, at least for Cary, I think more people don't fall in that category than do. So there is impact there, but it's not been in the past a level that would
Not as significant.
correct to cause us to want to make sure we're reviewing this as
But
closely with
I
you
bet
all.
that would be a different answer if it's Chatham County, because most of the residents in Chatham are active adults, or, these
Yeah.
active adult community. And I think Chatham also started giving vouchers 2 years ago. But we might not fall into the category.
Depending on
Right.
if it's income-based.
Yeah, the
yeah.
state sets some
Yeah,
income-based
yeah, that's a
requirements. It's a
statewide.
state, it's set at the
Not
state,
county
and
to
it's
county.
pretty low.
I thought it was county-wise.
You
County-
can't do tax relief county to county. Tax relief has to be applied universally the same to all 100
I
counties.
think the Chatham County 2 years ago started the voucher program for income-based.
We can look more into that and learn more specifically about it, but I do believe that the state sets that threshold at what defines an exemption for seniors, and then the counties can then carry that out.
adopt it.
Yes.
Got it, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, and the income cap is.
Yeah.
It's pretty low. I don't want to
Yeah.
quote it, but I have looked it up, and it's quite low. So it would, a lot of our population would
Yeah.
probably
Might not even fall into that, yeah.
Yeah.
1,000 or something like that.
So another question about the property value. If they appealed this year and they give them a new value, so next year there's no revaluation, so are we going to expecting more appeals, or it'll be as is?
Once it's appealed, it should stay at that rate until the next revaluation.
So next year is not the revaluation.
Correct. The next one is effective January 1st, 2027, which would influence the 2028 budget document. Yes, yes. All right. I do want to spend a couple of minutes on this charitable housing exempt topic, because this is the one that there's some things going on in the legislature that you're likely hearing about, and I know I've seen it on the news, so we want to make sure we cover this a little bit with you all. But there is a statute, and I'm going to have my attorney friend help me make sure I am telling you all good and appropriate things. It is NCGS 105.278.6. And it is called real and personal property used for charitable purposes. That statute had a Court of Appeals case in 2013 called the Blue Ridge Housing case, which established what everyone commonly refers to as a tax-exempt loophole. And that is what is being talked about right now in the legislature is, do we and how do we close that loophole? And what it effectively boils down to is it would allow for a small percentage. Say you have a number of people that have invested in an apartment complex, and you have 4 LLCs and 1 nonprofit, and say that nonprofit only owns 0.1% of that complex, so just the teensiest little bit. The majority of that complex would now technically be eligible for property tax exemption. So Wake County has an annual filing period between January 1st and 31st every year where these groups, these owners, can file for this charitable housing exemption. This information is current through today from Wake County. There were 6 that were filed in Cary, 6 multifamily units submitted applications, and all 6 have been processed and granted. So the numbers that we're seeing It's been decided and it's done. So those 6 properties had a total assessed value of $97.2 million. They were exempted out of $79.5 million, and our taxable portion is now only $17.7 million, which means that is about, at our current tax rate, a $270,000 loss in property tax revenue. So House Bill 1042 was submitted on April 23rd, 2026 to update and modify this property tax exemption. So that is still ongoing. You all can keep track of that just like I am. But that is the latest information that we wanted to make sure we shared with you all and that everyone is clear on.
And so what's the legislature think about that?
Well, that's also the same bill that has in it the potential constitutional amendment to require the General Assembly to set a limit on property tax increases per year. So it's rolled into the same legislation. And they've also filed legislation today to put a moratorium on reevaluation of property. I think it would only be for, I think they've said for a year. I need to fully read the bill. I don't know that that would impact Wake County's schedule, but it would impact counties who were trying to reval properties.
Which was time to allow them to figure these other bills out.
Yeah.
Should they pass.
Stacy, just so that I'm clear.
Yes.
The 6 multifamily units that have submitted applications, not all 6 are in Cary.
All 6 are in Cary.
Oh.
They are Cary, and they were all approved under this legislation for this exemption. And I verified with Marcus Kinraid, Wake County's tax administrator today, so I made sure that I was giving you the best information. And his words, all processed, all granted. So it is complete.
So it seems like, based on what I heard you say, it's a good strategy when you're doing these units to go find the nonprofit, just buy a little bit into this.
Just the tiniest little bit.
Wow. Okay.
Do you have any notion, I mean, 2013 is fairly long period of time, how much we've lost over that duration?
Well, we were talking about that today, and I don't have that number in front of me, but what we went back to was information that, again, Marcus Kinraid, who is Wake County's tax administrator, he presented to this topic early on to the County Board of Administrators, I believe February 16th, because I watched that whole thing. And he informed them at that time that this is the greatest threat and greatest loss to assessed value in Wake County since 2009 in the Great Recession.
Wow.
And I do think there's momentum to fix this loophole with the legislature. I think the issue is going to be, does it get tied up with other pieces of legislation that aren't as popular?
And is there any interest, I'm just curious, rather than delete it entirely, say, hey, if you have 75% of nonprofits, then blah, blah, blah?
The legislation, the first draft of it would essentially say you have to have a majority of units that are actually affordable at 80% AMI for 30 years, things like that. So making it really apply only to actual apartment buildings that have affordable housing units in them that are required to stay affordable.
And at some point, I'm guessing if that were to pass, if you go down that rabbit hole, they'd be reinstated at some point to some.
Yeah, they would put a time on, when does this become effective? And so then they would start having to pay. It wouldn't go backwards.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
They wouldn't have to probably pay us this tax that they just got out of.
Yeah.
But it would be for future tax years where they would then be fully taxable again or whatever.
Let me make sure I understand what I think you just said. So I've got away with it all these years, but now I've got to start paying.
Yes.
Because they've been following the current law.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's
Technically
good.
haven't gotten away with anything because it's legal.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Or the other case could be that people could actually, like what you were saying, have a nonprofit part in it and not pay. Because it's a pretty significant amount.
As long as that law exists,
Right.
you could expect to see more of that,
Right.
the existing law.
And there are legitimate complexes that would still be a tax exemption for properties that are more legitimately being used for charitable purposes, affordable housing purposes.
I'm a little confused with this is showing that it's mostly not taxable, but a small amount is.
Yes.
How is that determined? Each property is different and.
It's just the way that law was.
I should just go read this law?
There is a review process. There is an entire calculation behind that, but it could be up to 94%.
Okay.
In this case, it's not. This is closer to 80/20. I did
think
the
that's
math roughly
probably
earlier. But it could be as much, say, as 94%. It depends, and I'm not as fluent in that calculation. So I think that's, we started with the good news. Maybe we should have started with the sales tax, right? And maybe I started too high and ended too low, but we'll watch it. We'll keep an eye.
All right, and then this was my slide just on an update with regards to McCrimmon Parkway pedestrian improvements open house next week on Tuesday. This is for an existing capital project for the traffic signal pedestrian crosswalks along McCrimmon Parkway at Panther Creek High School. It had a lot of attention over the last year. And that is a existing project with a budget of $1.25 million. So already funded, already being worked on with a plan to install, with DOT's permission, traffic signals and pedestrian devices. And just wanted to highlight that for everyone. And that is all from a number of things. And the only thing that I probably wanted to add, since there's a little bit of time, is just since there's been a lot in the news and talking with other municipalities about it, is e-bikes, and it was what you all did as a council-initiated item. So we've got a team, Chief Salt specifically will be a part of, to determine what we are and or can doing regarding e-bikes, which is really more, as I was talking to the mayor a little bit before the meeting, probably a motorcycle issue to some degree, as possibly defined by the law, not really an e-bike issue. As you've seen from Chief Salt, those that have video or pictures, is please send it to the police department. And they've been doing some investigations and obviously made some charges even of this week. So since this is televised and this has been something that's been top of mind to you, I thought it bared a discussion that's certainly a safety consideration, and parents and children should certainly be mindful of those types of bikes that they may be buying that are described as e-bikes, but probably really are not. And it'd be beneficial to check what the laws are actually of those bikes that they're buying with regards to safety requirements, licensing requirements, insurance requirements, and otherwise. So just to let you know, we'll be bringing more back to you, but since those that may be watching are a way to at least to publicize this a little bit, is to say that lots of communities are dealing with this. We're not alone, and more to come on that topic shortly.
But it's on our radar.
Yes, absolutely. And thanks for Chief and his staff for obviously doing what they can within the spirit of the law right now, and we'll bring something back to you soon. That's all we had on the formal agenda tonight.
We're ready for a closed session?
If you are.
Somebody, sure.
Okay. Pursuant to GS 143, 318, 11A13, and 6, I move that we hold a closed session to consult with attorneys employed by and/or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorneys and the town, prevent the disclosure of information that is made privileged or confidential pursuant to the laws of the state or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes, consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment, or conditions of initial employment of one or more individual public officers or employees.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and the council will stay here and go into closed session. We'll reconvene our work session. We've concluded all our business for the evening, so we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't need a motion to get rid of a work session.